A full house plus one, as we have filled the table all the way around. It feels like Thanksgiving here at the Mario house. Welcome back from the first segment. The Admiral Bill Stubblefield currently sans microphone. Bill, you just wave. You don't have to say anything.
I was going to say Thanksgiving table. Joe and I feel like we're at the kids' table at Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I thought you were going to tell that cutting the turkey story again there.
I can.
Yeah.
And the big argument's about to start. So,
also, Michael Height, as in delegates.
Good morning. We moved Grandpa to the kids' table.
oh man,
That wasn't nice, Joe.
Joining us, New York Times bestselling author John Gilstrap in the Mike Carl seat.
good morning.
Joseph, Joey Torts Ferretti, not on the phone today, actually in studio, Joe.
In studio, yeah. Glad to be up here. Boy, it's beautiful today.
And Lawrence Schultz. Larry, good to see you.
Yeah, wonderful weather. Great stuff.
Yeah, we've actually been able to figure out a way to fit everybody in, we think, and we'll kind of go with that there, too. So there was a request yesterday by Mr. Gilstrap, I think, to get some questions regarding the legal proceedings going forward with President Trump since the 34 for 34 run that happened yesterday in New York City. So we're going to skip intros this morning, and before we get to issue number one with Joe, we'll get to the legalese of what follows, because I think that's a lot more important than making a few silly rhymes right now. What I regard as a very serious point in our country. I don't see this as anything less than the ultimate in the seriousness of what happened yesterday. So, John, since you suggested it, why don't you go ahead and ask the first questions of our attorneys in the room, Joe Ferretti and Larry Schultz.
Yeah, I'm curious. What's the logistics of what happens next? I mean, we have the conviction, and obviously there's going to be an appeal. So, as a practical matter, the appeal is going to be filed. There's supposed to be a sentencing happening on July 11th. So, I'm assuming the appeal is going to be approved, or whatever happens to an appeal. So, as a practical matter, is this a non-event for Donald J. Trump's schedule? I mean, does this, for his future, it may or may not have a serious effect, but between now and November, is this just kind of, is there going to be a pause and life goes on as normal as the schedule churns on? How does that work?
Well, I'll start, but I think Larry will agree with me. We're wading in the waters that are a little deep for he and I, because we're civil attorneys, and certainly the New York State criminal procedures are something that we're not going to be well versed in. But I think your question is, there's two parts to that. One is, naturally, you're wondering, is this going to affect the campaign and what's going to happen leading up to November, and the second question is going to be, well, what will happen, what could happen, and there's always potentiality with regard to somebody's liberty interest when they've been a convicted felon and now they await sentencing. What I think will happen is that there's going to be two things. One, the attorney's going to get ready preparing what's called an appeal bond. Okay, because they're anticipating this sentencing date coming up, and they're going to want to make sure, number one, that they're going to take the position that sentencing should be light, and secondly, that an appeal's coming, so the elements of bonding out, whether it be on own recognizance or there's going to be a cash bond required, so that the defendant can remain free, not incarcerated or held, those issues will come up on January 11th. So the attorneys right now are working on an appeal bond, and they're also working on the actual appeal itself. And in the meantime, the probation office for Manhattan is going to gear up, and they're going to do what's called a pre-sentence report, a PSR, where they start creating a document that the judge will refer to in sentencing. And what happens is the probation office will simply do kind of a biographical sketch of the defendant, who he is, and of course this is totally unique. I'll grant you that. But what they typically do is they'll interview the defendant. They'll try to figure out, okay, well, what's going on in this guy's life? What connections to the community does he have? How's he reacting to the fact that he has been convicted, and what may be best served in terms of justice and public interest going forward regarding that individual's continued liberty and the coming appeal. So probation office is going to be putting together a pre-sentence report, and that takes weeks to do. Typically. So, and in this case, it's probably going to take longer because there's just so many considerations. So the bottom line is there's going to be a lot happening behind the scenes that we're really not in tune with. To answer your other question, I'll take a stab at it, and then I'm sure Larry has his 2 cents too. I don't think anything's going to happen before the election in terms of ultimately deciding in the appellate process where these convictions go. So bottom line is I don't think there's going to be a great impact on this in terms of Donald Trump's liberty interest or his rights of appeal. Now, politically, it's a whole other matter. I know we're going to get into that.
Right.
Generally, I think Joe's got it right from the little bit of reading that I did. I think they have a 2-level appellate system, like West Virginia now has, where there will be an intermediate court of some kind that first considers the appeal. And then, depending on what they do and what the state Supreme Court thinks about what they did, they'll probably take it as well, because it's a pretty important case, even for New York. It's a big state, and there's a lot of wild stuff going on. So I don't see this having an impact on his freedom, maybe even once all the appeals are exhausted, even if he loses them all. I'm not so sure they ever intended to send him to jail. You've got issues with the Secret Service, which attends to former presidents for as long as they live, if they want the Secret Service protection. Well, I don't know about you, and I'd be glad to be a federal employee, but I ain't going to Rikers Island with the guy. I don't think I'd take an early retirement before
I don't know that he'd go to Rikers of all places.
Unless you get time and a half.
We all know it's going to be a country club if he goes anywhere.
Yeah.
It's a break for Louis Big Nose in the cell next door.
Yeah. And so I really don't look forward to him going to jail for very long. Depends also in this pre-sentence report period how he acts.
That's an important point. Yeah.
Once you have been convicted, whether the conviction is later overturned or not, once you've been convicted of a felony crime, certain of your rights get dimmed a little bit. And one of them is the right that attends your mouth. And so he ought to be kind of careful. He's got his helpers like Mario, what's his name? The guy, the senator from down in Florida, Marco Rubio. So I don't know how I got Mario out of that, but
I'm right here, Larry. Right here.
He's out there talking about, this is totally a scam and this is unbelievable and on and on. I think he's going to have to let those guys do most of that. He's going to have to go easy on this because the judge has a lot of power over him right now.
Yeah, that is, and Larry will agree with me, I'm sure. Any good criminal defense attorney under these circumstances is going to advise his client or her client, shut up. Okay? Do not attack the umpire who's going to be calling the balls and strikes in your case. That just doesn't make any sense to go after this judge personally now, with the judge sitting there with the ultimate authority to decide whether or not you're free to go. It makes no sense.
We're getting into more of an issue number one discussion right now than the legality of what's going to follow. And if you want to bridge right into that, Joe, with your issue, go right ahead.
But the point is that in all these machinations that are going to be taking place regarding the pre-sentence report and sentencing and all that, as Larry indicated, the defendant's behavior is relevant for the judge to consider in sentencing. Is he remorseful? Will he step forward and say, I regret having done this, which every lawyer tells his client to say in front of the judge? Even Derek Evans, the guy who stormed the Capitol, in front of the federal judge was remorseful and sorry. Now, he stepped out of the courthouse 5 minutes later and, claimed the whole thing was a sham. But in front of the judge to be remorseful. I don't know if Donald Trump has the Constitution to do that. So I'm sure his attorneys are going to be working on that, and I think that's all part of this build-up to July 11th and the sentencing. Is that all of this is still relevant, and Donald Trump, he wants to get out there on the stump, he wants to call this a sham, he wants to defend himself, and really, under these circumstances, you could argue that's not in his best interest.
I think being remorseful is a mistake on his part. I think that would be
Before
huge,
sentencing?
Yes, absolutely a huge mistake.
Okay.
Being remorseful is an admission of guilt, and he will not admit that he did anything wrong, even though there's been a conviction. His point all along has been that this has been a sham trial, that these charges should never have been brought, and if he appears remorseful, then that takes away from all of that he's been saying. Right now, I believe this jury has made a martyr out of him for many, many people. And to be remorseful at this point would be a huge mistake on his part. He is going, and being silent is not in his bag of tricks. That won't happen. He will go out and he will say this is a sham and that the judge is wrong, that he is biased, and that's why there's going to be an appeal, and he's being a martyr because of it. So I don't see him being remorseful, and I see him coming out and attacking this judge and trying to point out the bias that will help his appeal later on.
But, Mike, I think you're mixing politics and the judicial system right now. I think from the political aspect, you're exactly right. But from the potential sentencing, he should be remorseful. So it's hard to keep them separate, but they are two separate
But then he's
issues.
admitting guilt if he's remorseful. He'll get bonded out. I think Larry's right. He's not going to any jail or anything. I don't think, even if he comes out and attacks the judge, because if he does, that gives him even more of an appeal. It shows that the judge is being biased and is being personally motivated by how he's charging him. So I don't know. I think this is a good political strategy and a good legal strategy.
Which brings me back, actually circles back to my question when it comes down to the appeal. As I understand, an appeal is a reset, right? So he can come at Mershon, whatever the judge's name is, and do whatever he's going to do, and the judge gets really angry and sentences him to Devil's Island for life. But then there's going to be an appeal, and then all that is a moot point. So I think if on the political side, the argument is going to be that this is a political trial to begin with, that this is all that's going to be the drumbeat from the Trump administration. So to be consistent with the messaging, you're consistent with the messaging. So this whole thing has been a political sham from the beginning. So to back off from that and suddenly to be apologetic for the thing that you didn't do is just not Trump's brand. So I guess and that's kind of the root of my question.
Yeah.
So doesn't the appeal reset everything to zero? And so all of this doesn't really matter.
Only if it succeeds.
Well, yeah.
It resets his future life to zero.
Well, once you become president of the United States, I think there's a whole nother reset.
Well, the appeal has to show that there was something done wrong in the whole legal process to begin with. In the appeal process, they're not redetermining guilt or innocence. They're determining, did the judge do something wrong? Did the prosecution do something wrong? Was there something wrong with the way the trial was conducted? That's what they're going to evaluate in the appeal. And if the judge gets personal with this, if he takes umbrage and does too much in sentencing, you're leading to the appeals court saying justice wasn't blind here. You had bias. You took this personal, and you did something wrong. And then he wins the appeal.
True that. Now, but there's an underlying tension here. What we're talking about him doing politically, what makes sense, and what makes sense in the legal realm and in the criminal justice system. They're two different things. I will tell you that it is relevant for judges in sentencing to consider whether the defendant is remorseful or not. That is almost always considered. Now, in this case, it's not going to happen because I think you're right. He doesn't have the ability to come in and be remorseful. So the judge will take that into account. But at the appellate stage, those judges on appeal are not going to be swayed by what he's saying on the stump about the sham and
Right.
rigged and all. They don't care about that stuff.
Right.
They're looking at the record and the rulings and whether the law was appropriately applied in the case. So, what he does outside the court system is his gig, and it's not going to matter one whit. What happens, but what the danger for him is that what he feels he has to do politically sometimes is going to be against his interest legally.
It's a game of chicken.
It just is, yeah. And it has been. It's a
Yep.
good point, because calling out the judge, again, who's calling balls and strikes in your trial is not the best strategy. But in his world, where he's trying to run for office, he can say and argue, I think successfully, it's in my best interest to do so.
Even down to, I would think, I'm not a lawyer, but obviously, but if with all of the stuff he was saying during the trial, and then his lawyers have the audacity to ask for a directed verdict at the end, I would think that would, even if the judge would have been inclined to go that way, perhaps not, because of all of the insults and such that he had endured. Is that fair to say? I mean, kind of, because judges are human too?
Well, yeah. First of all, there's a technical reason why they have to move for a directed verdict at certain stages of the trial. It preserves
Their appellate rights.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they say they do that. And it's done in every case, even the most blatantly obvious case
Okay.
where somebody's guilty and has admissions that they're guilty. There's still a directed verdict motion. But bottom line is, again, you got this tension that exists. And it's going to be fascinating to watch it unfold. What he needs to do politically versus what he should be doing legally. And I can tell you the roads are going to diverge.
We
No
just set a record here. I said good morning a second time to Bill at 8:37. He hasn't made a sound since. Right now, Mark, that's 24 minutes right there.
Did you see him grab it?
That's 20 minutes.
And Joe kept pushing me away. This is my mic.
Yeah,
We wanted legal opinion, and Bill just didn't have anything to offer. It was all Joe.
So, Joe, is your issue going to be in regards to the Trump
Well,
verdict?
the issues I worked on, I just trashed because I was going to talk about something completely different, but the verdict came in last night when I was on the road. And I was not able to engage in all the discussion you guys had last night, so I'm sorry about that. But it was I had my wife reading it to me, so it was fascinating.
Your opinion in regards to the verdict. We'll just get, before we go to
Okay.
the top of the hour break, everybody's opinion on the verdict. Try to keep it to a minute or
Well,
less.
look, my training, my career has been built upon faith in the justice system and particularly the jury system. Okay, so while there's a lot of discussion this morning about rigged and shams and things like that, let's respect the fact that 12 people were plucked out of the community, were vetted. I don't remember a peep being said about the improper selection of jurors in this case, so I have to believe it was done appropriately. And these 12 people looked at a lot of evidence that none of us will ever see, and they decided guilt. So I think you have to respect that. I'm trained to do that. That's what I believe in, and so I'm not going to... I know we'll talk about the political implications of this, but bottom line is I accept the jury verdict, as I have many others, including some that have gone against me.
Next attorney in the room is Larry Schultz. Larry?
It is important to restate as many times as we possibly can that one of the basic institutional foundations of American democracy is the trial by jury system and our justice system in general. This happens to be a particular state's justice system. One of the things that fascinates me about this case is part of the claim against Mr. Trump, I believe, was that the attorney fees, quote unquote, that he paid $35,000 a month for to Mr. Cohen, which were not attorney fees, but were in fact a repayment for the hush money and a profit for Mr. Cohen for going to the risk of paying the hush money, that those things were deducted as business expenses on the personal income taxes of Donald Trump. And somehow, in this state of New York, that's a misdemeanor. Boy, I don't know whether I wish I was practicing in New York or not, because that's an awful lot of money to skip paying taxes on and have it be a misdemeanor, which is generally for the listeners a crime punishable by less than 1 year in jail. It's no wonder people cheat on their taxes in New York if that's a misdemeanor. But it was obviously made into a felony by the connection to the violation of New York election law that was done when they hid it. So they hid it, which is illegal, and then it got worse because they did it in order to commit this other no-no, which was affecting the election.
Thank you, Larry. And by the way, we're hitting the top of the hour right now. Our top of the hour break will be pushed back a couple of minutes, but for legal purposes, this is WRNR Martinsburg. Mike Height.
So I'm going to push back with Joe a little bit about the whole jury thing, because the prosecution did from the very outset want to move the venue, that they didn't think they could get a fair trial in New York, and didn't think that they could get 12 jurors that would be blind to justice per se. So they did push back a little bit there. There was some complaining. But all in all, I think that most people, well, I won't say most people, I think a lot of people are thinking that justice wasn't blind in this case, that there were, everything was stacked against Trump in this particular trial. That if you look at the other trials around the country in Georgia and Florida and stuff like that, I thought all those had more merit than this one. I thought this one was the biggest sham of all of them. So I was surprised by the guilty on 34 of 34. And what I think has happened is, I think, and I've always said on this show, I am not a Trump supporter, so let me be clear about that. But I think you've made a martyr out of this guy. That are a lot of people are thinking that he was treated wrongly by the justice system, and I think there is evidence of the Republican donor site crashing after the verdicts yesterday, because of all the donations that were flooding in to the Republican donation site. So I think you've done an injustice here by the guilty verdicts.
Mike, when you say you're not a Trump supporter, we've had these conversations before.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You voted for Trump twice, but you're not a supporter of his character. Is that what you're saying?
I am not a supporter of the man. I am a supporter of his policies.
Thank you very much for the clarification. Mr. Gilstrap, I believe, are you a Trump voter?
I'm a Trump voter. I think he's as flawed a man as you can get. He's Shakespearean.
Yes.
And I think it's a very sad day, actually, what happened, not because of the verdict per se, but because of the process that led into it. I have served on a grand jury for 2 years. I know how easily manipulated and how unbalanced that process is at the federal level. Certainly, I've not been on a local grand jury, but I was on a federal grand jury for 2 years, and it was entirely manipulated by the prosecutors. I've served on a Pettit grand jury, a Pettit jury as well, not manipulated. So I have nothing but respect in what the jury went through. What led to that in terms of the jury instructions and all of that, I don't know, but I know that plays a key role. What I think has happened here is that everything that has led up to the trial, whether in this case or in the penumbra of all of the other cases that have been happening, the missteps and mishandling of things by the DOJ and by the FBI, the perceived unfairness of federal agencies in terms of the way they treat Republicans versus Democrats, Donald Trump in particular. There's a sense that there's an anvil on the scale of justice. Now, at the end, I think everybody got what they wanted. I think that the Biden administration gets to say convicted felon about 1 billion times between now and November. I think that Trump gets to wear the victim card and bring in $200 million in campaign contributions. And the sad thing is, I think ultimately the price we're paying is that millions of people are a little less confident in the American justice system that they used to be very confident in, and I am among those.
Billy?
Yeah, this is an emotional day. People have opinions that it was either a justice was served or it was a sham. We've heard it around the table, both views. The unfortunate thing of this is that we do not know. We were not sitting there. We did not have live TV coverage. All that we were getting from the jury room were a second or third hand observation, most of the time either from a network that we agreed with, such as Fox News or MSNBC or CNN, but we were getting our views of whether justice was served or it's a sham through someone else's eyes, and we're being influenced by what we heard. I think it's a sad day that we're reduced in criticizing, and this is the point I want to come into when it's my turn later, one of the foundational legs of our government, that we're casting off and saying that the system is not working. I have no reason to think the system is not I have no reason to think that the system is not working the way it's supposed to be. Because I don't know that much. I don't know what went on in the jury room. I do not know what went on with the discussion. I know what I heard through a reporter's eyes or through Donald Trump's ranting after he left the jury room. But this is not a total or an objective way to form an opinion. Is a system working or not?
On that note, gentlemen, thank you very much. We'll get into our top of the hour commercial break and come back with Bill Stubblefield on the clock at 9:06. This is Talk Radio WRNI Martinsburg at TV10. The segment brought to you in part by the Berkeley County Health Department's Quick Response Team. If you or someone you know suffers from the disease of addiction, help is available from the Berkeley County Quick Response Team with peer recovery coaches and support promptly to the homes of those who've recently experienced an overdose. This collective effort towards recovery brings resources and services to the community, including naloxone and treatment options. Call 304-267-1313 or visit the Berkeley County Recovery Resource Center at 800 Emmett Rouse Drive, Martinsburg. The Berkeley County Quick Response Team is funded through a DHHR grant with the Berkeley Morgan County Health Department.
Hi, Kevin Knowles here. I'm asking the citizens of Martinsburg to vote June 11th to keep me as your mayor. I'm a proven leader, honest, very approachable, process-driven, with impeccable integrity. I have served the city of Martinsburg for 12 years. Martinsburg has come a long way, and I want to continue the forward progress and momentum we have. I am the most qualified candidate in this race. It would be an honor and privilege to serve once again as your mayor. Early voting starts May 29th. Please get out and vote.
Paid for by Kevin Knowles for Mayor Committee.
Most insurance companies see you as a claim number. Most law firms see you as a case file. When their top priority is their bottom line, you only get a fraction of the attention that you deserve. At the law firm of Burke, Schultz, Harmon, and Jenkinson, it's personal. We listen to our clients to see the whole picture, because every part of you is important. For a team built on relationships and results, call Burke, Schultz, Harmon, and Jenkinson at 304 Lawyers, or visit us at burkeandschultz.com.
The Palace Lounge in Martinsburg is the place to be. Join us every night to relax and enjoy football or basketball games featuring either the Martinsburg Bulldogs, Shepherd University Rams, or West Virginia Mountaineers. We will have steak night every Wednesday, shrimp nights every Thursday, and now taco and margarita nights every Tuesday. You can find us on Facebook or call 304-267-7520. The Palace Lounge is located at 1350 Edwin Miller Boulevard in Martinsburg.
Panhandle Printing and Design is your full-service local print shop.
With over 50 years of combined experience, we know how to handle all of your printing and design needs.
We can handle anything, from small business cards to wrapping large vehicles. Our in-house design team can do it all. As a staple of this community, we love helping people promote their events, businesses, and anything they're passionate about. Envision, create, and bring your ideas to life with Panhandle Printing and Design.
Welcome to CMA's Honda of Winchester, where you can drive an award-winning lineup of new and certified pre-owned Hondas, Accords, Civics, CRVs, HRVs, and more at CMA's Honda of Winchester. Owners just care more. Welcome to CMA's Honda of Winchester, where you can drive an award-winning lineup of new and certified pre-owned Hondas, Accords, Civics, CRVs, HRVs, and more at CMA's Honda of Winchester. Owners just care more.
Providing reliable protection since 1877, we are Farmers and Mechanic Insurance Companies. For over a century, we have been dedicated to provide dependable insurance protection and excellent customer service. We specialize in auto, home, farm, and business insurance. Our products are backed with personal, hands-on service. You can trust us to protect what matters most to you. For all of your insurance needs, there's Farmers and Mechanics Insurance Companies.
Mother Shuckers. Fresh Florida stone crab straight from the boat to your throat. Blue crabs, king, snow, Dungeness, all available year-round. Try and find that anywhere else around here. Homemade soup specials every day. Mother Shuckers is located at 1014 Winchester Avenue in Martinsburg. Mother Shuckers, we have an opinion. If you don't like it, shuck it up, Buttercup. Come on over to Mother Shuckers.
Is your skin dry or breaking out? Are your muscles sore and tight? Then take a few hours or even a whole day to refresh yourself, recover, and rejuvenate at Personal Reflection Day Spa, located at 102 Hovatter Drive in Inwood. Personal Reflection Day Spa is an award-winning spa for 15 consecutive years. The friendly, experienced staff will give you the treatment you deserve from the minute you walk in the door. Book your appointment by calling 304-821-1333 or online at personalreflectiondayspa.com.
After a car accident, what do you get when you call Mansion Ferretti?
You get more experience from a local law firm with over 115 years of combined service.
More respect from a team who treats clients like their own family.
And more fight, because we want you to get every dollar you deserve.
Experience, respect, results. If you've been injured, that's what you want in your lawyer.
And that's what you'll get when you call us. Car accident? Get more with Mansion Ferretti. 304-264-8505.
From breathtaking outdoors to unique local eats, world-class geocaching, and thriving local culture, Martinsburg, Berkeley County, West Virginia is where you can live your adventure. Berkeley County offers fantastic outdoor experiences, from our rugged hiking paths to scenic nature paths, public parks, fishing streams, and nature preserves. Cap off your outdoor adventures with a stroll through historic downtown Martinsburg. Join us and immerse yourself in our rich local history and scenic surroundings. Check out upcoming events and plan your adventure at travelwv.com.
Tune into the Sports Mix to hear from former and current local standout athletes.
It's been crazy, man. All the love, all the support, everyone reaching out to me. You know, this is what I dreamed of when I was younger and stuff, and to have an opportunity to show them and do what I can do, it meant the world to me.
Co-hosts Colin McLaughlin, Nick Verzolini, and Dylan Bishop break it down weekdays from noon to 1 and re-aired from 5 to 6, right here on Talk Radio WRNR, TV 10, and the TV 10 Facebook page.
This segment of our program today brought to you in part by the Mansion Ferretti Law Offices. Where are you physically going to be located, Joe? Once I have to get you to take that mic away from Bill there.
Yeah, I'll pry it from his dead cold hands here. We're moving to 201 East John Street.
When does that happen?
Because I've sold my building.
Yeah, so we
I'm just excited about that.
Congratulations on the closing.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we're going to be moving actually this weekend. That's why I'm here.
Oh, cool. All right. Also brought to you by CMA Honda. There obviously a lot of reaction regarding the verdict yesterday, whether you're happy about it or not. I'm sure there's a pretty equal split on there, but I'm guaranteeing you there's one person out there who is the happiest person on the planet that this news came up yesterday, and that's a fellow by the name of Corey Harris. He's a Michigan man, 44 years old. Corey was scheduled to have a Zoom meeting with the judge over his suspended driver's license. And Corey had the sense to join his Zoom meeting with the judge for having a suspended driver's license while driving his car to the doctor's appointment that he had.
I saw that.
And when he joined the Zoom meeting, the judge incredulously asked, "Are you driving your car?" And he said, "Hold on, Judge, I'm getting to the doctor's office. I'm about to park the car right now."
Yep.
And the judge said, "Let me understand something. You are under suspension of a driver's license right now, correct?" And Corey then realized the issue with driving a car to a place where you're joining a Zoom meeting with the judge.
Being slow-witted is not a crime, Ron.
And then he claimed the whole thing's rigged.
So for Corey Harris, I'm sure he's quite happy that Donald Trump stole his headlines, or else he would be the number one story in the news today.
You're doing your part.
Bill, issue number 2.
Yeah, I'm changing my my issue from what after the verdict was released last night. 2 of our foundational cornerstones in this country, it has been from when we first became a country, was that of the elections and our judicial system, our courts. For the last few years, both of these have been under fire. Last election, last couple of elections, it's been said that our elections were flawed. Our elections were improperly done. So there's a question with the legitimacy of our elections. We're seeing the same thing now with our courts, not necessarily our Department of Justice. I'm separating that away. I'm talking about the courts themselves. When a verdict goes against what we would like to see, it is a flawed system. It is corrupt. It was a sham. My question to my colleagues is, if we lose either one of these foundational bricks in our mortar, what's going to happen to this country?
Michael Haidt?
Well, we talked about this a little bit off air, and you know, I think judicial system in particular is in trouble right now. That there is probably half of the country that thinks that the Lady Justice was not blind in this particular case, and that if it is overturned during appeal, that will flip, that the other half of the country will think that Lady Justice wasn't blind in this case, and that, so for that reason, I think the justice system is in trouble right now. That if he doesn't win an appeal, if it's not overturned, then you still have the same situation that you have right now, and people are not satisfied with the way the justice system is working right now. As far as elections, you know, we've had a problem with elections, I would say, for about 10 years now, where people are not comfortable with how elections are going and how they're being done. We're in the 21st century, and with the computer systems we have now and how elections are run, I think we can do a better job. And when you have counting throughout the night, you know, West Virginia, I realize West Virginia is a smaller state, but, you know, usually by 11 or 12 o'clock, we have the results. And so the rest of the country is like, you know, why does it take so long in Philadelphia to count ballots? Why does it take so long in this area or that area to count ballots? And when it takes that long, there's a perception that there's something rigged about it. Whether it's true or not, there's a perception there is. And I think we have to do a better job in both systems to give a better perception that things aren't rigged and that things are being done correctly.
Mr. Gilstrap.
Way to pick a small topic. I'm gonna go with judicial system first here. I think there's a deliberate effort by politicians. I'm going to pick on the left, obviously, because that's my want, to undermine the confidence in the judicial system. Every time you hear a decision that comes down that leans toward the right, that goes back toward constitutionalism, you hear Trump appointed judge. It's always there's a qualification to who made the decision. You don't hear, you know, an Obama appointed judge or a Clinton appointed judge. It's always, you only hear the Trump appointed judge. We hear calls to recuse Alito, Justice Alito, because his wife flew a flag upside down, because somehow he's responsible for that and can no longer have wisdom. But we're supposed to not question Judge Merchan's decision, even though he's an active contributor to the Democratic Party. We hear talk from the Biden administration early on. We haven't heard this for a while, but because there's a conservative court right now, and courts, you know, they swing. right? It depends on how this goes. They've been conservative, been not conservative. Stacking the court. We need to have more justices so that we can continue to have liberal causes supported. We have the New York Attorney General. I think it was the Attorney General. An official in New York was just spanked by the Supreme Court for their efforts to silence the getting banks to not do business or not fund businesses that do business with NRA-backed companies, to silence the NRA. So we do see there are a lot of efforts from justice-related groups that are trying to weaponize against conservative causes. I perceive that. I think we see it. It's in the media. So yes, it's out there, and yes, it's damaging, because if we lose faith in the justice system and the underpinnings of the justice system, the feeders to the justice system, which would be law enforcement agencies across the board. We demonize law enforcement agencies that enforce laws. They're the bad guys if they in fact arrest certain rioters, but not other rioters. Yes, it's a big problem, and yes, I think that it is becoming undermined. And this trial with Donald Trump, the merits notwithstanding, it didn't have to happen now. That's my big. We've discussed this on the show before. This didn't have to happen now in an election year. It's a crime that happened 8 years ago, 9 years ago. The statute of limitations at the local level had already expired, so they revive it now in an election year to do the most damage to a campaign as it possibly can. Maybe that's just happenstance, but that's what it looks like. Nobody's that blind to not see this. So yes, I think there's a perceived weaponization of the justice system, and the perception is very strong, and it's extraordinarily damaging. As far as the election system is concerned, electioneering has been going on forever. JFK and Chicago, and it goes on and on and on. I think what's happening now is awareness is getting sharper.
Joe Ferretti.
Well, I think, Bill, with regard to your two foundational bricks in our society that no doubt are very important, we're in as much trouble as we will allow ourselves to be in. If we're going to get our news from TikTok and Facebook, you're not going to get the news. If you're not going to read and you're not going to approach these issues with some sobriety and not be influenced by the politics of the day and those who would want to do harm to this country, who don't care about these foundational bricks, then yeah, we're going to be in trouble. But it's up to us. And I would ask folks to do your homework, to read, to listen intently, consider the sources of your information, and decide on your own how much faith you have in these systems. I've worked all my career in the civil justice system, and it's flawed because it's run by human beings, so it's not perfect, but it's the best system in the world. There are many democracies in this world where somebody in Donald Trump's position would never be charged, would never be brought to trial under any circumstances because of who he is. But in this country, that's not the case. No matter who you are, you can be brought before a judge and jury and held to account. And if you lose your case, you have to accept that, because that is what our system allows to happen. So the bottom line here, in response to John, the pendulum swings both ways. Yes, the progressives and the liberals are just as guilty as the conservatives in terms of being boisterous and demagoguing a lot of these issues to a fault. But the bottom line is, it's up to us to make sure that we understand, we read, we learn, we make logical deductions, so that if you look at all the investigations of Donald Trump and you see that in every one of them, January 6th committee, the trials that he's been subjected to, it's all his people testifying. It's people he's employed. It's people he's been associated with. They're not bringing in ringer witnesses from whatever to tell untruths about Donald Trump. These are his people who are indicting him. So at some point you have to look at that logically and say, geez, there might be something here. But that's going to take that kind of thinking in order to maintain some faith in the system. But I can tell you, we're on a razor's edge right now.
Larry Schultz.
Before the 16 election, at the time, right before the time or around the time that they were doing these things in Manhattan that have now resulted in these 34 convictions, Donald Trump was already saying, if I lose, this election is rigged. Here we are with the same guy 8 years later telling us the trial is rigged. So the vast majority of all that we have noticed about the erosion of the reputation of our judicial system and the reputation of our elections as being fair and honest has been caused by one person, Donald Trump. Now, have there been questions in the past? There certainly were. And we would have maybe gotten to some of this a few times a few years earlier had Gerald Ford not taken over for Richard Nixon. If Nixon had played out his term and not resigned in favor of his vice president, who then pardoned him very quickly, then Nixon might have gone on trial for the tapes. Luckily, even Nixon was a decent enough person to see that there were people on both sides of the aisle who would use that as an excuse to denigrate the judicial system. Mr. Trump started with the election system, and now he's denigrating the judicial system. These are the pillars of our way of governing ourselves. They have been recognized all over the world as the best that you can possibly do in human governance, and they are being attacked. I do not hold any particular, I'm not feeling particularly guilty that the Democratic Party has eroded our system of justice. Sure, there's criticisms of the Supreme Court, just like there was back when Roe v. Wade was decided the way it was. Those criticisms have gone all through our history. That's not quite the same as saying that jury trials are rigged and that elections are rigged, especially when you have no evidence. He argues that this case was rigged. He's found guilty. He argues that the elections were rigged. 63 cases, he won 0 of them. None of them, except maybe 1 or 2, ever got past the motion to dismiss stage, which in civil law, if your pleading on its face, your complaint on its face, doesn't make any sense, if you're denying gravity and you're making claims that are just wildly inaccurate, the judge doesn't have to have a whole trial on that case. He can just say, get out. And that's the nature of the Sidney Powell and that whole group of now slowly being disbarred lawyers that came together. Those were attacks using the judicial system to try and attack the election system. Now they're saying that same, and then they said when they lost all the cases, they were rigged. This is not something new. This is what you do to dismantle a democracy. You attack its biggest institutions and you tear down the faith of the people in them. This is a very frightening time. And I don't see it as, well, both sides are doing the same thing. I see one side doing this, and in particular, one part of one side. Not so much the Republican Party as this guy. And they are attacking our basic institutions. I don't know how they will ring this into the next level, which would be education or our military or, I don't know, civil service. But that's the idea, is to keep on tearing down these institutions until they aren't strong enough to withhold what they want.
You're saying there was only, it's one-sided. Are you saying there were no election deniers in 2016 from the left?
No, what I'm saying is they didn't take the leaders of the party and put them in charge of systematically eroding faith in our electoral system. There were complainers on the left that we still have the Electoral College, which lets people with the minority of the votes win the election. That's a little bit different, but even that is not rigged. It's guaranteed. It's been the law for a long time.
There were sitting senators and congressmen that said that election was rigged, and it went to Donald Trump, and not rightly so. So I don't know how. Now there may not have been the legal proceedings that there were that Trump and his team did, but there were sitting senators and congressmen that said this was rigged.
Sitting senators and congressmen would include people like Marco Rubio. I don't consider that an authoritative source.
Okay.
Well,
I'm just saying it's on both sides.
Well, I think there's a little bit of false equivalency there. The complaints in 2016 were foreign interference and foreign influence, and there was.
It was disproven.
No. It wasn't disproven.
Yes, it was.
No, it wasn't. There was meetings in Trump Tower with Russians. Paul Manafort went to jail because he didn't report income derived from him sharing election information from the campaign with the Russians. I mean, there was smoke. I'm not saying there was fire. There was smoke.
The Steele dossier was a complete
fabrication
that was paid for
by. That's a whole nother matter.
No, but
that's part of the matter.
No.
The matter.
The point is, there was enough smoke to investigate the fire. That's all. That's all that was. Now, I can concede we didn't find this this big fire that we
because there wasn't any, because it was made up, it was paid for by the Clinton campaign with campaign funds, a clear violation of campaign finance law for which there was no consequence.
I'm not here to defend the Steele dossier.
No, I understand that, but we're talking about there's only one side. That's where. But
no, I'm just saying that there's a false equivalency here to say to question whether or not there was foreign interference in the 2016 election, and in 2020 to have 63 lawsuits filed claiming that people who work in the vote tabulation areas, the clerks of the counties where they count the votes, were somehow on the take. The quality. In terms of the quality, there's a difference here, because now you're saying you can't trust the vote tallies. Okay, that there was a leaking pipe in State Farm Arena in Atlanta, and suddenly suitcases of votes came in to get counted, never proven. There's that versus an investigation about foreign interference and influence in the election. I think there's a quantitative and qualitative difference there.
Bill comes back to you for a final thought.
Yeah, my question was not designed to say who's right, who's wrong. My question was the impact we're having on our foundational bricks right now. Joe made a point earlier that a solution to this is to start getting your news from reliable sources, not depend upon Facebook or TikTok. That does not give me a lot of comfort. We as a nation have become intellectually lazy. We want people to spoon feed us with what we want to hear. I'm not sure we have the desire now to intellectually or objectively pursue what is right and what's wrong. And so this is just another chipping away at these foundational bricks.
We'll take a break here, and we come back. Mike Height is on the clock. This segment of the show today brought to you in part by WVU Medicine, Berkeley Medical Center, Jefferson Medical Center, leading healthcare here and everywhere, and CMA Honda of Winchester.
Welcome to CMA's Honda of Winchester, where you can drive an award-winning lineup of new and certified pre-owned Hondas, Accords, Civics, CRVs, HRVs, and more at CMA's Honda of Winchester. Owners just care more. Welcome to CMA's Honda of Winchester, where you can drive an award-winning lineup of new and certified pre-owned Hondas, Accords, Civics, CRVs, HRVs, and more at CMA's Honda of Winchester. Owners just care more.
From breathtaking outdoors to unique local eats, world-class geocaching, and thriving local culture, Martinsburg, Berkeley County, West Virginia is where you can live your adventure. Berkeley County offers fantastic outdoor experiences, from our rugged hiking paths to scenic nature paths, public parks, fishing streams, and nature preserves. Cap off your outdoor adventures with a stroll through historic downtown Martinsburg. Join us and immerse yourself in our rich local history and scenic surroundings. Check out upcoming events and plan your adventure at travelwv.com.
Hey, it's Cody from Cody's Auto Body.
You're a potty mouth.
But we do a really great job fixing cars after an accident.
I know, but you're still a potty mouth.
I'm possibly the best friend you could ever have.
You are, but potty mouth.
If you need your car repaired, come to Cody's Auto Body, located at 851 Wilson Street in Martinsburg. Because that's Cody's with a T for f***ing trust.
See? Potty mouth.
Leave me alone.
The future doesn't wait. Why should you? Blue Ridge Community and Technical College offers over 60 degree and certificate programs in education, IT, culinary arts, engineering, and so much more. Small class sizes, flexible schedules with evening and online classes, affordable tuition, plus financial aid is available to those who qualify. Now you can go to college. Visit us online at blueridgectc.edu. That's blueridgectc.edu. Stop waiting and enroll today.
The Classical Christian Academy at Bethel is helping create extraordinary futures.
So we've seen improvements in our boys on the, as I said, arithmetic, reading and writing.
I worked in the county, I worked in public school, and that's what I knew. And I knew I wanted to be able to give her more. So I would recommend this to anyone.
You know, our daughter has thrived here. The family-like environment is exactly what she needed.
The Classical Christian Academy at Bethel in Martinsburg, equipping children to lead lives of significant impact.
I do.
We got double the Rock's gas rewards, 6 cents off a gallon.
Can't believe you didn't fill up.
That's double my rent. Not my car.
Save now with double the gas discount. 6 cents off a gallon with Rock's Rewards.
We got double the Rock's gas rewards, 6 cents off a gallon.
You had one job.
It's between girls.
Save now with double the gas discount. 6 cents off a gallon with Rock's Rewards.
Hi, this is Larry DeMarco. I'm with Century 21 Modern Realty Results. Macy Folk and I have a new listing here at 614 South Queen Street. We'd love to give you a tour.
This charming stone home is turnkey ready. It has 5 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a fenced-in backyard, stone fireplace, new HVAC, stainless steel appliances, hardwood floors on the first 2 levels, and luxury vinyl flooring on the 3rd and 4th levels. There's plenty of room for a growing family with 2,008 square feet of living space. The home is located within walking distance to Martinsburg High School at 614 South Queen Street. Stop inside to discover a fully renovated interior that exudes elegance and charm by calling Macy Folk at 304-676-5050 or by emailing her at macyfolk1@gmail.com. The Larry DeMarco team at Century 21 Modern Realty Results is located at 804 North Queen Street in Martinsburg.
Panhandle Printing and Design, your local one-stop print shop. We help people manifest their visions, make them come to life. From logos, posters, and window graphics, to banners, business cards, promotional items, car wraps, and more. The options are limitless. One thing's for certain. When you visit Panhandle Printing and Design, you'll be delighted to work with our prompt, professional team as you describe to us what you're looking for. Envision, create, and bring your ideas to life with Panhandle Printing and Design.
The W.B. Rockefeller Neuroscience Institute Martinsburg clinics have moved to a new location. Our RNI team has moved to a larger custom-designed suite on the 3rd floor of the Spring Mills Medical Office Building at 61 Campus Drive. RNI teams now located in the new Spring Mills office include physical medicine and rehabilitation, neurosurgery, and neurology. We look forward to welcoming patients at this new location in Spring Mills. For more info, call 304-596-5038.
This segment of our program today is brought to you in part by the Skinner Accident and Injury Lawyers. We got our roadies are fixing the cameras during this here. If you've been harmed, contact them at skinnerwins.com. Also brought to you in part by L.A. Roberts Jewelers in downtown Martinsburg. This kind of blindsided me, to be honest with you. I had no idea about any of this. I just had it sent to me by one of our listeners. Then I saw it kind of took on a life of its own in our comment section about a rally to support Donald Trump that was posted on our Facebook page, TV10. That was posted by the owner of this place, Michael Hornby. He was an elected delegate. I have nothing to do with that. I certainly don't plan on attending it. And generally speaking, that's fanboy stuff and the media. I don't get into that kind of stuff. But if you have comments about that or you want to love the guy for it or complain to the guy for it, that's a separate phone call to him. I'm not in that mix whatsoever. I do my best to not pick sides when people are on the show, as I've said for the longest time.
Phone number is
recently disconnected. As I've said for the longest time, my rooting interest in any election is that the person who does the interview with us will get the job, because that's what benefits the show. If you're not a person who's friendly to media, I would prefer you not win the election, really. It doesn't matter to me whether you're Republican, Democrat, conservative, whatever. I'm really looking for media access here, so I don't go out of my way to support one candidate or the other with public rallies. So in terms of whether that affects my biasness or not, no, Mike Hornby doesn't give me instructions on who to root for in an election or what to say about anybody or what questions to ask. That's a completely, totally, and separate area, and it's a complete division. There's no influence whatsoever from the owner on how this show goes or who's on the show at any point along the way, just so everybody is clear on that. Now, as we move on to issue number 3, that would be Michael Haidt, and we are in about 17 minutes, get all 3 of you done. So let's hit it.
All right, so I'm going to move on to our current administration, and the southern border issue has reached Martinsburg, where an illegal alien with a lengthy criminal history recently allegedly murdered a woman here in Berkeley County and set her on fire after she had been murdered. So my question to the panel is this administration, the Biden administration, doing enough with the southern border?
All right, Larry Schultz, and again, about a minute on the responses.
Yeah, and the answer is no, because the Republicans stopped them from passing the bill that Senator Langhorne wrote. So, yeah, they're not doing enough, and it's because the Republicans won't let them.
That was concise, Larry.
Thank you.
Billy?
Yeah, as the gentleman you're talking about actually came to this country illegally under the George W. Bush regime, and not the Obama, not the Biden, not the Trump, but George Bush. So he's been in this country for quite a while. The other thing that I take some problem with is that alluding to the fact that our drugs are coming across the border. They're coming across illegally, but they're coming across at the choke points. They're not coming across outside of our regular border entry. This is where we need to concentrate to make sure that our points of entry are secured in such a way that drugs do not continue to come across.
Joe?
If you wanted more money for border agents, if you wanted the asylum procedures reformed, and if you wanted use of drones and other technology that's out there to police the border, the Senator Langford bill would have done that. So that's one point. The other point I would make is, to answer your question, Mike, no, the Biden administration has not done enough, and they're going to pay a price for that. I'm not going to say they're going to lose the election, but they're going to be on the defensive side of things in terms of their footing politically, because they haven't done enough. He should have been smart and passed some executive orders that could or could have not been shot down by the courts, which is what happened during the Trump administration too. But he should have done something more and then just sit back and throw his hands up and say, Congress won't help me. And I think that he's going to rue the day that he didn't do more, because the situation in Martinsburg, as tragic as it is one thing, but we had a college student murdered in Georgia by an illegal immigrant, and that issue is just as hot down there, and I think it's going to be politically a tough issue.
Mr. Gilstrap.
Meaning, not putting you on the spot, Mike, I think it's bad form to put a political spin on a particular tragedy. So I want to separate those two out, okay? So I want to talk about the border emergency as separate from any particular incident that's happened. And it is an emergency, and it's largely caused, 99% caused by the Biden administration. The bill that was turned down by the House and the Senate, not to get into the merits of that, the bottom line was the border was essentially shut down on January 19th of 2021, and Biden, leaning to his left, just opened it. He undid everything that was working under the Trump administration, and we ended up with this flood of illegals coming across. The fentanyl is mostly coming through the choke points, Bill, but there's a lot of human trafficking that is certainly not coming through the choke points.
I concede to that.
There's a lot of other illegal drugs that are coming through the choke points. We know that there are a number of from the gotaways, from the catches, and composed as opposed to the gotaways. We know that there are a lot of terror watch list people who are coming through the border. This is a total disaster. There were a number of known terror cells in the United States that are perfectly legal to exist until they pull the trigger on something, which is inconceivable to me. And we know that they are being, I presume that they are being populated by these folks who are coming through. Hamas terrorists have been caught trying to come through, so we have to assume that they are coming through. Nothing is being done under this current administration to quash the inflow, but they're trying to find the Democratic establishment is trying to draw a line in the sand and say, hey, we set the fire. It's only burned down 44 blocks. And we tried to get this water can passed. And the Republicans said we couldn't use the water can. So this whole fire is their fault. It's just not true. And I think it's a tragedy. I think we're going to be living with it for a long time. And it's going to cost the Dems.
Back to you, Mike Kite. Final thought?
Well, I will say I appreciate, Joe, that somebody from the left will concede that this administration is not doing enough. And I will concede that the Republican-led Congress probably should have passed that legislation and probably could have done more. But this administration didn't need that to handle things a little different. They could have done executive orders. They could have kept with the Trump era orders that were already in place. So I think we need to do more. We have to do more. And this seems to be like a political football all the time. And we need to get together and solve it instead of passing it back and forth from one side to the other.
Issue number 4, Larry Schultz.
Yes. Will the Congress of the United States ever get together and pass an ethics standard for our Supreme Court to follow?
All right, let's go first with Bill Stubblefield. Bill, go ahead and grab that microphone. Lean a little to your right, not necessarily with your response, but just to get in the camera shot.
Okay. So I can be closer to Joe.
You need to be closer to Joe so you're in the camera.
I don't know if they will or not, Larry. They should, and I hope they will. This comes back to the issue we were talking about much earlier, the credibility. And our credibility is very fragile as it is, having some high-profile Supreme Court justices that are not apparently as objective as what we would like to think they would be, hurts our credibility. So something has to be done. I do not think the Supreme Court's going to do it themselves. They've had the opportunity to do it over the years. They've chosen not to.
John Gilstrap.
That's like the ladies at the brothel setting the standards for the frat house. I don't. We got 3 co-equal branches of government. Constitutionally, how does that even work? You can't have the legislature put together standards for the co-equal branch of government.
Well, they have for every other single federal judge in this whole country. But every other judge is bound by a code of ethics.
And they
have passed by the Congress.
Is that done by the legislature?
I believe so.
And they have it by the executive side as well.
So, but no, you should not have the legislature telling the people, telling the Supreme Court what is and is not appropriate for the Supreme Court to do. I think that's fundamentally wrong.
Joseph.
I hear all the time that Chief Justice John Roberts is an institutionalist. Well, I would ask him to read the room. The Supreme Court reputation by polling is the worst it's been in this country's history. There's one way you can address that. Of many ways you can address that. The one way you can address that is to develop some sort of code of ethics. If it doesn't come from Congress, do it on your own. Model it after what Larry refers to every other federal judge lives by, every other state court judge lives by. You can do this on your own, Chief Justice Roberts, if you don't want Congress meddling. Do it, because you need to read the room and understand that your institution is really taking a hit.
Mr. Heights?
Yeah, I think there needs to be a code of ethics, and I agree. It needs to come from within the Supreme Court itself. They need to set their own code of ethics, and they need to live by their code of ethics, and they need to set them not just for themselves, but for future justices that come along. But with respect to Alito and his wife, I mean, I don't know why you would have to recuse yourself because something your wife did. My wife and I don't agree on a lot of things. So just because my wife goes out and spouts something on Facebook doesn't mean that that's my opinion, and I should have to recuse myself from something that's coming up that I may have to rule on because my wife said something on Facebook or flew a flag or something like that, and I'm telling my wife, honey, you shouldn't be doing that. I disagree with you, yada, yada, yada. And she's like, I don't care. It's a free country. I can do what I want to.
Mike, would you extend that same defense to Clarence Thomas, or do you see a difference?
I would extend that same to Clarence Thomas as it affects his wife or any of his family members, just like we have with the judge in the Trump trial, where his daughter is doing some things over here. That has nothing to do with how he is ruling on that particular case. Now, what he does, if he's donating to the Democrats and people in particular, that may have some effect on it, but not what his kids or his wife or anybody else is doing.
It's my understanding that Manchin bought a $25 shirt, and that's the limit of his contribution to the Biden administration.
Ooh, you did some digging.
Yeah. But maybe more. But that's what
Bill just couldn't believe someone spent that much on a shirt.
Yeah. I just don't think
they were 25 cents when he was a kid.
I don't think the ethics should transfer from an individual spouse to how they rule.
Let's Larry, on your cause of time, I'll skip your final thought on there and go to John Gilstrap for issue 5. I
want to go back to my favorite topic of the last few weeks here, and that's the education system here in West Virginia. The more people I talk to, the more I realize that at every step, whether it's the school administration or the school board or the local school board, superintendent, state school board, legislature, where everybody has built themselves a bunker without an escape. Everybody has a place to hide, and they have no choice but to let things go. But somebody, by God, has to change this. Everybody agrees. Somebody, not me, because I don't have the power to do that, they say, but somebody has to change this. And I hope you start with Mike, because I'm actually stealing one of his questions, so it seems appropriate. So how do we unravel this? Somebody has got to step up.
Where does the buck stop?
Where does it stop, or where does it start?
Mike Height.
Well, and that was one of my questions. I hear a lot of times when we're discussing the education system in West Virginia that there is blame to be put on the legislature. And in my opinion, the legislature has tried to take control of things. They've tried by trying to get this amendment passed so that they have some oversight over the Department of Education in West Virginia. There's been talks about doing away with the Department of Education in West Virginia from a consolidated Charleston control back down to the counties. And it's been defeated every single time. So as a legislator, I'm sitting here scratching my head. What more can we do? We pass laws. We have an education committee. They go in and they discuss a lot of these things. They try to come up with solutions, and they pass laws, and then they get to the Department of Education and they choose whether or not they enforce the laws or pass them down the rules and regulations to the county. So as a legislator, I'm scratching my head. I'm like, I'm not sure what to do at this point.
Yeah, Mike, this has been one of my issues that I've not gotten to for the last 3 or 4 weeks, ever since the North Middle School became an issue. I thought John Gilstrap framed it quite well. The buck stops here. The buck stops, they go down several different paths. Mike, I see that we as a state, there is only one body that has the capability of addressing this and coming to the root of it, and that's our elected state legislators. I do not know the answer to it. But I would encourage a hope that the legislators do not hide behind this very small sapling by saying, we tried, the voters voted it down, there's nothing else we can do. I don't know what you can do, but you should do something.
Joe.
And spend some time looking at it, do something.
Mike, real quick, I think where the legislature gets itself in trouble a little bit is sometimes they wrong foot the issues. Okay, when you're acting in the best interest of the child, say, don't be caught up in trying to put librarians and museum curators in jail because they happen to have an offensive book on the shelf. Okay, the kids aren't in the libraries anyhow. They're on their phone.
Hey.
They're on their phone. And state of New York is now trying to regulate what these kids are exposed to in social media and the phones. That would have a larger impact on getting these kids on the right path, I think, than where sometimes the legislature wants to go down some of these alleys that seem very narrow. And I think that's where some people lose faith in the legislature being the ones overseeing education. I think in theory it's a good idea, but you don't wrong foot the issues.
Larry Schultz.
I've been told repeatedly, I don't know positively that this is true, I think it is, that 40% of the teachers at North Middle School were long-term substitutes and therefore not certified teachers. So one of the things that legislatures can do is find a way, whatever way that might be, to go to other states and get us more certified teachers to serve in accord with the requirements of the law that we have certified teachers in every classroom.
Well, with respect to North Middle School, I think that's a discipline problem. It's not necessarily a certified teacher problem. And I think that's a problem throughout the state and throughout Berkeley County. There's a discipline problem.
6% tested grade level in math.
And it comes way before North Middle School. They're not testing very well when they first enter the middle school. So it's happening way before you get to that. It's happening in that 4th, 5th grade level as well. So it's, you look at the legislature, and Joe, you bring up the cultural issues. The legislature can walk and chew gum at the same time. They can bring up cultural issues like banning books in libraries, or what I would say banning inappropriate age books in libraries. They're not banned totally. You can go to a public library and get them. And the other issues like discipline as well. So the legislature does take all those things up.
15 seconds, Mike.
And it's doing the best it can right now.
Yeah, there's many.
I did say 15 seconds, Bill.
Go ahead.
John, you get a final 30-second statement here.
Now?
Yes.
Okay.
Go.
Everybody needs to stop looking at the problems and getting distracted, but about what the challenges are. People need to start ignoring those and looking at, okay, that's the fixed point in space. Now we need to figure out how to live with that and fix the problem.
Love a guy who understands the deadline. Thank you, John. It's 9:57. Final minute. Final thoughts next.
We are the Skinner Brothers. Most folks only need a lawyer once or twice in their lives. And when they're injured or in an accident, most people don't know what to do. We get it. It can be overwhelming.
Nobody likes to be told, you need a lawyer. But that's why we're here. We want to get you back to your normal life and help you recover.
So if you or loved one has been in an accident, give us a call. Let us figure out how we can get you compensation.
Reach us at SkinnerWins.com or Google Skinner Lawyers. We'll treat you like family.
Hi, Kevin Knowles here. I'm asking the citizens of Martinsburg to vote June 11th to keep me as your mayor. I'm a proven leader, honest, very approachable, process-driven, with impeccable integrity. I have served the city of Martinsburg for 12 years. Martinsburg has come a long way, and I want to continue the forward progress and momentum we have. I am the most qualified candidate in this race. It would be an honor and privilege to serve once again as your mayor. Early voting starts May 29th. Please get out and vote.
Paid for by Kevin Knowles for Mayor Committee.
Mommy, where does flavor come from?
Well, when people love food, they cook it on a Traeger grill. Meat, corn, even pie. And then the Traeger does the rest, which brings everyone to celebrate this beautiful thing that they've created. Because when you share delicious food with your friends, that's the flavor of life.
Shop now and save at Orsini's today.
The Sports Mix is your #1 source for the top sports stories in the Eastern Panhandle.
I believe the NFL is a week-to-week industry, so I am telling you this week is when the Beast predicts that the great number 17 will in fact touch that field at some point.
Co-host Nick Verzolini, Kyle McLaughlin, and Dylan Bishop break it all down weekdays from noon to 1 and re-aired from 5 to 6 right here on Talk Radio WRNR, TV10, and the TV10 Facebook page.
Final thoughts brought to you by L.A. Roberts Jewelers. Larry Schultz, go.
Great weather this weekend. Go out and enjoy yourselves.
Mr. Stubblefield.
Yeah, did the political discussion warrant giving up the introductions this morning?
Mr. Ferretti.
The Stubblefield Institute will never run out of subject matter.
Mr. Gilstrap.
What an honor it is to live in times you know will make history books.
Mr. Height.
I'm going to answer Bill's question. No, there should always be introductions. Always.
If we'd have had introductions, we wouldn't have had that stirring controversy that we had this morning about who posted on the Facebook page that there's a Trump rally. Hey, it's 10 o'clock. Dave Ramsey Show is next. This is Talk Radio, WR Martinsburg and TV 10. We'll talk to you at 70 short hours.